I have a bunch of retro computers, but what can I use them for? Today we're taking a closer look at something really cool to do with them online, and it's even period appropriate. I'm thinking of BBSs, or bulletin board systems, of course. So let's get on with it. Before the internet as we know it today, bulletin board systems were the primary way people connected online. But what exactly is a BBS? A BBS was a computer system running a specialized software that allowed users to dial through their modems, creating a local or regional online community. BBSs emerged in the late 1970s and peaked in the 1980s and 90s, which was before I was old enough to be part of it. Unlike the internet, which of course is a global network, BBSs were usually small-scale and locally hosted, since users would call into the BBS using their landline modems. This is probably a very familiar sound for many of you. I know it is for me. We had this US Robotics Sportster modem connecting our Macintosh SE FDHT when I grew up, but my dad did only email, no BBSing. Once connected, the BBSs could access various features like message boards, file libraries, and games online even. As personal computers and modems became more accessible, the BBS scene exploded. Let's take a look at how to connect to them today and the different stages of the BBS evolution. Few of us have landlines to call BBSs through today, but through the client-server application protocol Telnet, it is possible to access BBSs over the internet. As you see here, I discovered that with Telnet I can access BBSs from the terminal in my Ubuntu Linux computer. Of my retro computers, I so far only have access to the internet on my Macintoshes, and several Telnet clients were developed for the Macs. Let's take a look at some that I found on Macintosh Garden. Here is nifty Telnet for System 7 to macOS 9. I had some problems with local echo and not being able to turn it off in this client, but with some BBSs it works well. Better Telnet is also for System 7 to macOS 9 and seems more customizable than nifty Telnet. NCSA Telnet can be used on System 6 to 7.6, and I had some problems with it crashing, but sometimes it works well. I use System 7.1 on most of my 68K Macs, but I also tried Mac Telnet here, which is a client that runs on PowerPCs with OS 8 or above. We'll take a closer look at these clients in action and some of the problems I ran into. Initially, BBSs were entirely text-based, meaning users navigated through menus and message boards with simple ASCII characters. Here's an example of such a BBS, clud.ge or cludge, accessed through nifty Telnet. This BB actually runs on a Macintosh Plus machine. That is pretty amazing. After an initial message from the system operator, we get the main menu there on screen. We see that it is graphical, but entirely character-based. Here we have some typical features such as bulletin board, of course, and a file transfer area. With W, we can see who is online in this very moment. And with B, we can access the bulletin board. I wrote a message there. I'm looking at it here with my SE30 from 1989. So this machine is actually much more powerful than the Macintosh Plus server it's communicating with now. In a previous video I showed how I connect my SE30 to the internet, but here is a recap, no pun intended. The SE does not have any built-in networking capabilities, but SE does stand for System Expansion. I was lucky enough to come by an SE that happened to have this Dana port ESI30 card inside. This connects to the PDS slot on the logic board, and a ribbon cable goes to the connector board, which is accessed through the opening on the back. My connector board had the coaxial connector and the AUI port, but not the RJ45 connector, which is for standard Ethernet cables as we know them today. I managed to get one of these 10BASE-T Ethernet transceivers on eBay that plugs into the AUI port on the back of the SE, and then the Ethernet cable plugs right into it and then into my modern router. On the software side of things, I installed Open Transport to make the computer communicate with the internet. Open Transport requires a minimum of 5 megabytes of RAM, so it won't work on less powerful systems such as the regular SE or the Macintosh Plus. For those systems there is something called Mac TCP, but it's rather involved to set up apparently, as it does not support DHCP. I'm sure I'll be giving it a go though on my SE if DHD in the future. Here are the problems that I had with some of the Telnet clients. This is the problem I had with Nifty Telnet with some of the BBSs. There would be a local echo where all input would print twice, making it impossible to use. In the other clients there are settings for this, but I can't seem to find them in Nifty Telnet. Sometimes I would have a problem with NCSA Telnet that I would try to connect and the terminal window would just crash. Restarting the program usually resolved this. For some BBSs I actually had trouble seeing any legible characters at first. This is what I got. Garbled characters that obviously weren't encoded right. There is an option for setting the character encoding for the session, but I found that did not work. Instead I had to change the encoding to US ASCII once the session had started, and then reset the terminal. Here I am connecting to another BBS through Better Telnet on my PowerBook 170. This is another BBS entirely with ASCII characters, DJ's Place. This BBS is running on something even older from Apple, an Apple IIe. Let's add DJ's Place to favorites so we can access it through the menu bar without having to write the address every time. We give it the name here, and we write the address, bbs.impact with a k.net, and the port is 6502. Of course it is. Now we see it there in the favorites menu. Here we are, connecting to the Apple IIe somewhere in the world. Okay, so I'll log on to DJ's Place here. And there we are in. We see here how one navigates the menus with the letter number commands. Usually if you type question mark, you get a list of available commands in your location on the BBS. Here we get a graphical menu again with ASCII characters only. Cool. There was never any Ethernet expansion for the PowerBook 170, although a built-in dial-up modem was an option. For this computer I'm actually using the Pi SCSI both as the hard drive and as the Ethernet adapter over the SCSI port. You can hear the hard drive spinning there inside, but as we saw in a previous video, it's not working. Do check out that video where we got the computer up and running. I have some more improvements coming up in a future video, such as a new homemade battery and an internal blue SCSI. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss that. Anyway, the Pi SCSI there is running the virtual hard drive, but also emulating this thing, the Dynaport SCSI Link, which was an Ethernet adapter that connected to the SCSI port of the computer, along with the Dynaport drivers, which are also on Macintosh Garden and Open Transport, which we saw before. We can get this machine onto the internet. If we take a look at the simple ASCII BBSs Clutch and DJ's Place on my modern Linux PC, we see that both still just show simple text. Here is clud.ge, as we see in monochrome. And here is DJ's Place, also in monochrome. The black background with the green phosphor text really makes me want to get internet going on my IBM 5150 as well in the future. It would be great to BBS on that thing. As technology advanced, so did the BBSs. ANSI art brought colourful and visually appealing graphics to the BBS world. Additionally, some BBS systems supported limited multimedia content like music and small images. Here is the BBS particles on my Linux PC. And as you see, the prompt asks about ANSI support when we connect. If we go with color here, we see that the header is actually quite fancy with colors and simple graphics, although I think it's optimized for Commodore, another system I really need to get online. Here is the main menu in Particles, and we can see that the banner is showing quite nicely here, and we see the different colors. Here we have my PowerBook 170 connecting to the same BBS, Particles, but here there is obviously no support for any graphics or color, and the interface here is entirely character-based. From what I gather, it basically has the same functionality, but the user experience is obviously very different. Let's also check out the Telnet client Mac Telnet, which only run on OS 8 and above, but let's see it on my iMac G4, where I have OS 9.2 installed. Mac Telnet needs SpeechLib, a function which I apparently didn't have installed, but it is the text-to-speech function that can be installed separately from the OS 9 installer CD. Here we see the BBS heatwave with actual colors, even if it is still a bit hard to make out exactly what it is. But the menu commands there are actually colored, so that's hard to see in monochrome. The rise of the internet in the mid-90s marked the beginning of the end for the BBSs. As the World Wide Web gained popularity, people migrated to the more accessible and of course global internet. Despite their decline though, BBSs did leave a lasting legacy as they paved the way for online communities and laid the foundation for modern social media platforms. Today there is apparently a growing nostalgia for BBS culture, and I'm excited to experience this, even if I'm very late to the party. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more retro computing coming your way in the future. Do share any BBS memories in the comment section below. I'd love to hear more about it. Until next time then, take care and thank you for watching.